Richard Griffiths, he wasn't a posh man, but he sort of by virtue of becoming a sort of a fated British actor has become posh in that way that people there are certain careers in the UK that enable you to transcend into the status of poshness, and being kind of like Shakespearean actor is definitely one of them.
Yeah, so I mean, what can I say? Let's just start from the beginning. So this film, one of the opening shots of this film is the I in Withnail and I, Marwood, reading tabloid headlines, and I think one of the opening shots is one about like someone getting a sex change, and he starts sort of like doom and glooming about like
greasy spoon,
yeah, about like, look how society is falling apart, and there's rapes and murders all over the place, and I can't even stand being in this place because I'm falling apart. I can't handle it. And what you learn is that they've been up for 60 hours on speed, and they're on like an ultra bender, and it's effectively they are two actors who live in a shitty, disgusting flat in Camden, and one is Marwood, the sort of narrator, the I, and the other is Withnail, who is and so I'm going to be honest with you.
Withnail being played by Richard E. Grant.
Yes, I presumed, or rather, from the plot and from the things that take place, it became obvious to me that Withnail was the posh one, and Marwood is not. And I think it's because of the but it wouldn't necessarily have been apparent to me right off the bat, I think, or rather, I would say that like my read as an outsider would be that one is more flamboyant than the other, but that like the attributes strike me as like both of them being like either coming from some kind of like comfortable standing, definitely not being like working class, I suppose. And I don't really know. I can't really divine much more than that. So I'm interested.
I don't know if Marwood is really supposed to be like working class, but he's supposed to be not posh. But obviously in Britain, that is a wide spectrum.
He's definitely not working class. But whereas I feel like was it Danny, the drug dealer? He is kind of like sort of like Cockney hippie vibe. Like he's sort of like like guy in, I don't know, Mick Jagger's entourage who gets arrested for beating someone up outside of a club, and there's a story about it later. Like that's the kind of vibe, like menacing, weird hippie, Cockney druggy guy who thinks that you shouldn't cut your hair because your hair like receives vibrations from the earth.
Yeah, he's actually a Sikh. He has deep-seated beliefs about not cutting your hair. That's a lot of hippies they go more like Hindu mysticism, but he's gone more niche, which I respect.
Yeah. So I wrote in my notes off the top here just little snippets. The first note was average British kitchen. The second was which drug is it that makes you this annoying? The third is I recognize that from there's an album track on the Ride album, Going Blank Again, called Cool Your Boots, that starts with the snippet of even a stop clock is right twice a day, or even a stop clock gives the right time twice a day. I didn't know what it was from, and so hearing it, I was just but when the song opens, that sample is played, and then before any music comes in, so it was very clear to me. I was like, this is 100% what it's from, but like it just completely took me out of place for a second.
Well, this movie is very much, I think, one of the most referenced movies of all time. Like, even if you're not familiar with this, I guarantee if you spent any time on twitter.com, you'll be familiar with the screenshot where it's like, we've gone on holiday by mistake, where they're stood in the rain, grimacing.
Or the two begging the farmer for food in the rain, and they're just like wet and begging. Like, I've seen that screenshot many times. It's sort of like the frame is shot like from the perspective if you were in the tractor looking down at them. Like I've seen snippets of this or stills of this. My other notes were normal drinking culture when he drinks what I believe is kerosene, like lantern fuel or lighter fuel.
Yeah, it's lighter fuel. Yeah, lighter fluid.
Roncinol, whatever.
Yeah. Well, there's famously there is a Withnail and I drinking game which where you have to just drink everything that they drink in the movie. And a lot of people elect to skip the lighter fluid.
Yeah, one presumes, yeah. I mean, in fairness,
but I think even if you just drink the alcohol they drink, it's punishing.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, and I suppose the next scene Or the next note in my notes just says drug guy. So that was when Danny is in the frame, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see. This is drug guy. This is loose drug user as opposed to respectable drug user who's drinking lighter fluid right now.
Yeah. Danny very much bringing the energy of, like certain type of British drug dealer. Not the actually the worst kind of drug dealer to have, because he's going to be in your house and you're going to have to indulge a lot of like really annoying chat about the Mayans.
This is not a value judgment, but since I'm not a drug user, like my only drug encounters in the United Kingdom have been either buying stuff off of like a darknet exchange and having it delivered Royal Mail to buy weed, and then once buying weed from a guy and having to meet him in like Dulwich Village, which is an interesting place to meet someone to buy drugs. It's hard to be inconspicuous when you're the only person walking on the street. I'm not familiar with it, but I feel like it's a thing that you see referenced both in British and American films, oftentimes about sort of like, this guy sells us drugs, so we have to hang out with him and we want him to leave, but he won't. But in this case, there's like sort of an argument between Withnail and Danny basically, Withnail's like, I can basically do twice of any drugs you do and nothing will happen to me because I'm a machine. All I do is take drugs and be insane. And he offers him this like basically some kind of pharmaceutical pill that just looks like a yellow jacket, and basically he's like, this thing will fuck you up and paralyze you and so on and so forth. But then Withnail more or less just insults him and he leaves. He says
the pill costs £2, and they both like scoff at this level of expenditure, which I feel like I'm just trying to like cast my mind back to 1969 and how much money £2 would have been.
Yeah, I mean, there's comparison sites and things like that online. I do recall one time seeing a thing in your parents' garage, like they had the old Essex magazines, and they were selling new build houses near Bishop Stortford in these magazines, and it was like it was like a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom like detached family home for £7,000, and that was in the late 60s. So I guess 1/3500th of that house is how much that pill costs. So potentially a lot of money. I don't know. I also, I'm going to be real with you. This doesn't come up that much aside from a few things like shillings to make phone calls, but pre-decimalization currency in the United Kingdom still just it's like you invented a language and everyone's in on the joke, and I'm the butt of the joke.
Okay, it would be £28 in today's money. So those of you at home can decide how much you would pay for a pill that fucks you up and paralyzes you, and is it more or less than £28 sterling?
Yeah, exactly. Is it worth it? I mean, I remember years ago my friend reading like Arrowit or some kind of drug forums online. This would have been like over 20 years ago. And reading some story about some guy who's like, yeah, I took some pill or some substance on Friday night, and then basically like had this hallucination that a giant picked me up and took me into the clouds and taught me all about civilization and the human experience for 100 years. And it lasted 100 years. And then when the thing ended, it was like Sunday afternoon. It was just a weekend had passed. I think that pill might be worth £28. But if all it does is just paralyzes you like you accidentally took ketamine when you were thinking of taking something else, I don't really think that's worth it. Because, I mean, £28 can, you can probably go down the takeaway and get a decent meal for that. Like, I'm not trying to be like, well, it's a banana. What could it cost $7? But prices in Britain have gotten really bad. I do know that £28 is not enough to get you a meal for 2 people on Deliveroo, because I've fucking seen that shit. But, down the takeaway, down the Shalimar Kebab House, you can get a kebab and a drink for like £6 cash. So you know what? Like, £28. I'd say go to the kebab house.
I reckon out of London, like if you're talking like suburban home counties, you could get an Indian for 2 for 28 quid if you weren't going too crazy. 2 mains, 1 rice, 1 naan, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it is just very funny. Yeah. Cause like, now that I live in Switzerland, like, I cook way more because delivery stuff is insanely expensive and there's just not as many options. But there are some times when you look on sort of like piss take Deliveroo restaurants in London, and the cost of mains is not that far removed from the cost of mains in Switzerland, a country where where the minimum wage in Geneva is like £21 an hour, I think. So where like if you work full time, minimum wage in Geneva, you make basically 45,000 pounds a year. But then, you go down the street to like get a Lebanese takeaway, and a little box of the stuffed grape leaves is the equivalent of 10 pounds. A like kebab plate where it's just like some salad, some hummus, some bread, and a meat is like 19 pounds. So Deliveroo really taking the piss. The pill, probably not worth it, not worth 28 pounds unless you meet a giant and spend 1,000 years getting enlightened and what's the right word? Edified about the mysteries of human experience.
Yeah, we should get that giant on the podcast.
I'd like to have. I bet you the giant could tell us a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I want his bird's eye swathe view of British culture.